Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Officer, what do you think of Van de Graaff saying this has taken an emotional toll on the members of your police force?
If you have any questions, we have a media person. Her name is Lisa Monday, and she would be more than happy to answer all your questions.
Okay, you're here now, though. Is this taking an emotional toll on the force?
What he's trying to do now is shift blame towards us and make the officers the victim, when in fact it was our rights that have been violated by the chief. The chief is giving the order to his officers to come down and violate the law under Section 2C. We have the right to be here.
So that is great news, that if the police that we work with, whatever, and that they are joining, wanting to know to live in peace also. That's wonderful.
I live out in the country, and there's parties going on every weekend. I'm driving past signs on their front lawn saying honk and we'll drink. Fireworks are going off every weekend out there. I'm right up by Rice Lake. Boats are going around the lake, so people are done. They're not necessarily willing to stand for freedom, and I wish more would be willing to stand, but they're done complying.
So it's safe to say people aren't staying home at this point?
Yeah, even people that are going to stores wearing their masks, pretending to look compliant, are having friends over, campouts. This is all going on, I can guarantee that.
If you had a message for the police, what would that be?
Join us. You are here to protect us. I understand you guys have jobs and you might be afraid because you, like the rest of us, have mortgage to pay, families to support, like the rest of us. But if you don't stand with us, eventually you will be against us.
For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini here in downtown Cobourg once again. What was coined in the before times as the feel-good town is now more reminiscent of a fenced-off town. For the second summer in a row, Cobourg Town Council has voted to fence off the Victoria Park beach. That's a huge public space, and as opposed to last year where the vote was unanimous, this year it was a divided vote where the mayor interjected and subsequently the beach was closed. But some of you may remember some of the protests that Rebel News, specifically David Menzies and I, covered here in Cobourg last summer 2020. Have a look.
Town Council has decided in its wisdom to fight the Wuhan virus by closing the beach until August 31st. And I think in Canada, that means the entire summer. It's not California. You can't come here to the beach in November. So all the activities, all the water sports, Cobourg's famous sandcastle competition, that's all wiped out. Well, you know what? As the saying goes from Twisted Sister, they're not going to take it anymore. A bunch of people in Cobourg are assembling at Victoria Hall.
Now, in addition to the closure of the beach once again, there has been a heavy police presence in Cobourg downtown on Saturdays, not only for the protesters here, but there's a farmer's market just a block south, and of course the beach is just a few blocks southeast of this location. And I did a quick drive around, saw a heavy police presence. I will quote Police Chief Van de Graaff in Northumberland News article, where he is quoted as saying that the extra hands on deck for the law enforcement have cost taxpayers in excess of $8,000 a weekend. Is that to say just Saturdays, or does that span the whole Saturday, Sunday, and for a long weekend, does that include the holiday Monday as well? That seems like an outrageous amount. I know that a few of these protesters have racked up some serious fine amounts, so I'm going to head in and see what they have to say. But also in the same article, Police Chief Van de Graaff noted that this is taking an emotional toll on his officers. And some of you may recall a few months ago when I reported on a local gentleman who was tasered twice by a police officer for alleged mask non-compliance. Now, the situation escalated pretty severely, and just days later, another gentleman was tasered again for mask non-compliance by the same officer. So what is going on with the Cobourg Police Service? Are their police emotionally unavailable? Do they need some emotional training maybe? Do the police not want to be here and being forced on an order to attend a protest of people who have the constitutional right to do so? Does that negatively affect the mental health of these police? Let's head on in and see if we can get some comments.
Today, I'm just going to let you guys know that groups of 5, and you're allowed, obviously, groups of 5
Yeah.
as of today. according to the new changes.
Yeah.
Okay. So just letting you know.
Great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good one, man.
You as well.
Officer, what do you think of Van de Graaff saying this has taken an emotional toll on the members of your police force?
If you have any questions, we have a media person. Her name is Lisa Monday, and she would be more than happy to answer all your questions.
Okay, you're here now, though. Is this taking an emotional toll on the force?
Again, if you have any questions, you can speak to our media relations officer, our media relations person, which is Lisa Monday. All right, thank you.
Well, the officer just approached me and called me by name because they know my name, and he just let me know that the Ford government has implemented or loosened restrictions recently, and that he never said anything about tickets, but he did try to say, please try and stay 5 feet apart, and that was pretty much it. Just letting us know that, like, they're not going to ticket us by the sounds of things, but please try and stand 5 feet apart to help make their job a little bit easier.
Have you received one of these $880 lockdown tickets? 4 of them. Wow. So that's another participant here was telling me just under $4,000 worth of accumulated tickets.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at $880 a piece, yeah, you bet it adds up pretty quick.
Now, tell me about the fines that have been enforced here in front of Town Hall. Have you received any fines?
I've got 4 tickets so far.
4 tickets, and are they $880 each?
Yeah, the non-compliance $880 tickets.
So what's the total on that? My math isn't so good.
It's a lot. What am I at? Well, just under 4,000, right? So $3,600.
And Police Chief Van de Graaff is noted as saying that this is costing taxpayers in excess of $8,000 a weekend. So how do you think they're going to recover that cost?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to recover it. I see comments from people saying that they should charge us, but we're in Canada and that's not how it works here.
So do you think these fines hold their weight in water?
No, I'm banking on that. I certainly don't have the money to pay these out front. If this does get to court and a judge orders me to pay it, then I'm going to have to do a long payment plan on it.
This extra law enforcement over the weekend is costing us in excess of $8,000. Again, can you make sense of that?
I honestly can't. They are spending $8,000 every weekend on overtime for police officers to come down and ticket and monitor peaceful people standing on a corner with signs. They're not attacking people, they're not offending people, they're not screaming and yelling at people. They're literally standing here, hugging each other, talking, catching up on their week, holding signs and waving and smiling at people. That constitutes an $8,000 overtime paycheck for police officers. I don't get it. If I was a Cobourg resident, unfortunately I'm Hamilton Township with a Cobourg resident or a Cobourg address, but if I was a Cobourg taxpayer, I would be angry right now. I would be standing in front of a hall, as I am now, when they meet for their sessions or on their Zoom calls, and I would be raising bloody murder. My tax dollars should not be going towards police officers standing there monitoring peaceful people.
I'm interrupting your program to bring you this very important public service announcement. YouTube has succumbed to the cancel culture mob and is ready to remove Rebel News from their platform. To make sure you keep hearing from us, subscribe to our mailing list at rebelnews.com. Now back to your regular programming. Now, what about the emotional toll that Van de Graaff comments on for his service members versus the emotional toll having such intimidation tactics being deployed by the police service and the emotional toll on the protesters?
What they don't seem to understand is they're bringing the emotional toll on themselves. If they actually read the regulation, if they actually read the law, if they actually paid attention to what the Police Services Act states, and if they followed their oath, there would be no emotional stress on them. In fact, they would be standing right beside us and lobbying the government for change, lobbying the government to respect our Charter of Rights and Freedoms and our Canadian Bill of Rights. There would be no emotional toll on them. I will tell you right now, I was harassed and assaulted yesterday in Mississauga. I asked the police afterwards, can I have those people charged with harassment and assault? Because all I did was go in a grocery store to buy food. And he said to me, it's a gray area. When has it ever been a gray area to assault verbally or physically and harass people? I don't believe that's a gray area. But it's a gray area because I'm not wearing a mask and I'm wearing a Hugs Over Masks t-shirt, that's what makes it a gray area for police. There's no reason to be under duress or stress. They need to be joining us and stopping up and stopping this madness.
That's wonderful news. That's hope for all of us. And the police, you know, there are brothers and sisters out there too, and that is wonderful news because we all want to kind of live in peace and also have the stress off our lives. It's been very toll. People can't work, they can't eat. There's a lot of, you know, stress that is putting people where they never been outside yet. So that is great news that if the police that we work with, whatever, and that they are joining, wanting to know to live in peace also. That's wonderful.
What he's trying to do now is shift blame towards us and make the officers the victim, when in fact it was our rights that have been violated by the chief. The chief is giving the order to his officers to come down and violate the law under Section 2C. We have the right to be here. And under that same Charter of Rights, these officers, on the day that they were sworn in as officers, put their hand on a Bible and their other hand in the sky and swore to God that they would uphold and defend the Canadian Charter of Rights. When they come down here, it is actually us who are receiving the emotional toll that is going along with it. So my comments to the chief are, if he's not man enough to do his job and turn to his superiors and say, no, I won't enforce what you're asking me to do because it's unconstitutional, then perhaps it's time that we had some real leadership in the police station in Cobourg and somebody with a little more fortitude to do the right thing, because doing the, you know, just running after drug dealers and doing all that police stuff, yeah, that does take bravery, but real courage comes from when you have to do the right thing no matter what.
So you have mentioned that you have come from Poland. What are you seeing here in Canada that's similar to what you experienced under communist rule?
Right now I'm seeing that every right we had before, and I would like to mention, I waited 2 years in a refugee camp to come to Canada. It was country of my choice. And coming here, slowly observing, especially right now, all the rights are being taken. It's exactly what happened in communism. Looks like we have one party, few people deciding for the rest of us, and whoever disagree with it is shut up, go to jail, or else face other consequences. It was very similar in Poland. When we were protesting, we couldn't go on the street. If we went on the street, we would be basically treated with gases, color water, where if you got the color of your clothing, even if you were escaping from the police, you could be identified and then you would be taken to jail and basically beaten up and jail for as long as they wanted. You had no rights. This is to control, this is to take all the rights from us, this is to destroy middle class, working class who is supporting Canada. This is exactly what I lived under for 25 years, and if we don't unite, we'll go down.
And now you guys have been out here for over a year now. Where do you see this going?
I remain hopeful. I always remain hopeful that people are all of a sudden going to realize what's happening and more people will start coming out and just say, this is it, we're done.
Well, just yesterday, David Menzies published a report, I believe it was on the 407 or the 400 going north, where cars were gridlocked, essentially, getting out of the city for the long weekend. So do you think Canadians and Ontarians specifically are showing the government what they think just by doing that?
Yeah, so we don't get a ton of people down here. Toronto was amazing last week, tens of thousands of people out to the big events. Small town Cobourg, you know, if we get 15, 20, 30 people, we're pretty happy about that. I live out in the country, and there's parties going on every weekend. I'm driving past signs on their front lawn saying honk and we'll drink. Fireworks are going off every weekend out there. I'm right up by Rice Lake. Boats are going around the lake, so people are done. They're not necessarily willing to stand for freedom, and I wish more would be willing to stand, but they're done complying.
So it's safe to say people aren't staying home at this point?
Yeah, even people that are going to stores wearing their masks, pretending to look compliant, are having friends over, campouts. This is all going on, I can guarantee that.
The Town Council voted once again to close the Cobourg Beach for the second consecutive summer in a row. Just as everything, all the outdoor amenities in Ontario have reopened. Can you make sense of that?
Well, I always enjoyed going into the beach and going to the water just to have that connection with my bare feet in the sand, which is of natural energy. And I'm missing it again for a second season, and it breaks my heart. And I hopefully by the summer maybe something will get overturned and we can maybe enjoy our beach again. So I'm hoping for the best, that the best is yet to come.
You know what? I really can't. All the beaches in Toronto, Picton, Prince Edward County, Bancroft, they're all open. I do not understand why the people of Cobourg are paying taxes for a beach we're not even allowed to use. I saw the fencing go up and I was like, what is going on? Just the other day I was walking down there and people were on the beach enjoying it with their tents, their children, laughing, playing, splashing, feeling good about themselves, exercising, getting some relief from their mental health anxieties that's going on. And this is how the town decides to repay the taxpayers?
Well, it's funny because they were just complaining about the cost of taxpayers' dollars to have the police officers down here, and you can already see that we've got 5 or 6 down here, several more on bicycles. How much does it cost to fence off the beach every year? Now, keep in mind, the Cobourg Council does not purchase the fence. They rent the fence. So it costs them, I believe it was over $100,000 for them this past winter to fence off the skating rink. Now, the skating rink itself, if you were to line that up, is probably only about 150 yards long in a circle. The beach is about 600, 700, 800 yards long. So we're talking about 5 times the cost of the fence. So they're talking about wasting money. Well, they're wasting money on that. They're taking away our spaces. Like, the beach is our space to go and use. It's really not up to the town council to decide what we can and can't use, because these are places that are taken care of by our tax dollars. These are public spaces. They're our spaces. And the argument you get is like, well, it's keeping people that shouldn't be in our town away from here. But I don't care if you're from Cobourg or you're from Toronto. You have that very right to come to Cobourg and enjoy the beach, whether you're from Cobourg or whether you're from Toronto.
Well, and for me personally, as someone with small children who enjoy a sanded beach that's maintained, I will then travel out of town to enjoy those same amenities that I could stay within my alleged bubble, per se, and enjoy here. So it's a little bit ironic, don't you think?
I would have to agree. And in fact, last summer, we walked around while the beach was closed before. We just got a nice middle finger there. We get a lot of those drive-by middle fingers. But while the beach was closed, we were talking to people on the street and asking them where they were from. 70% of those people were from outside of Cobourg, Toronto, Oshawa. People from as far as London were coming to Cobourg to visit, and they were here in anticipation of using the beach, but they didn't realize that last year it was fenced off. So
let's have a quick look at my reports from last summer, where I note that there are an excess of out-of-towners visiting Cobourg, despite all of the closures intended to keep the other away. What brings you here to the town of Cobourg?
We were just going to go for a walk along the beach.
All right. And did you know it was closed upon your arrival?
Nope. Just found out. Why is it closed?
Well, apparently the decision was to keep the out-of-towners away. So are you
out-of-towners?
Are you from this area?
No.
If you just came for the day to stay on the beach, you're not going to come. But if you come to visit Cobourg for a while like we have, it's a beautiful town and we would come regardless. Yeah.
Are you finding that the majority of people in the park here are from out of town?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
If you had a message for the police, what would that be?
Join us. You are here to protect us. I understand you guys have jobs and you might be afraid because you, like the rest of us, have mortgage to pay, families to support, like the rest of us. But if you don't stand with us, eventually you will be against us.
Well, it seems to have been a fairly uneventful afternoon in front of Victoria Hall, downtown Cobourg. The police presence was definitely there, other than a caution to not gather in groups of 5 or more. There was no tickets handed out to the participants in the background. A large portion of the crowd has decided to move on and they have marched, so I'm going to wrap it up. And once again, we met someone who had fled a communist country, who lived in a refugee camp for 2 years of her life. I'm not sure if we caught that on camera, saying this is the playbook. What we see happening in Canada is the tiptoe that results in communism. Canadians, heed warning. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. If you've received one of these $880 Ontario reopening should be the lockdown act, head on over to fightthefines.com. We will crowdfund your legal defense at no cost to you. That is fightthefines.com.